hitting that bone gave them feedback. And it was feedback that their strike was where they'd aimed, which is exactly what we wanted, because far too many goalkeepers at the top of the box just launch it. We are launching it, but we're launching it with a target. So there's an in-possession focus here, there's an out-of-possession focus, and then you'll see in this next one as this unfolds, is that I bowl it a little far into the box. And I would say there are a few things that are really, really tough to replicate as a coach. One of them is defending the 3 yards at the top of the box. And actually, the ball that I give to Didi in a second is defending the 3 yards at the top of the box. Can she come to smother, or is she going to launch it out for a throw-in, which would keep pressure on our team?
Yeah. I absolutely love what you were just talking about right there. I mean, I should be taking notes right now. I'm going to have to go back and watch this because, you know, Saskia, I would say that in my maturation as a coach, you know, I've started recognizing, and a lot of this happened during the pandemic, and shout out to all the wonderful coaches who I've been able to have discussions with on and off the air, but about the in possession to out of possession. And when you're talking about activation and engagement, we've got to make sure that it's involving both, because that's the game.
Yeah, you'd only have to come to one Angel City game and be there for about 10 minutes to see how important it is that we use our goalkeeper. And in the recruitment process of putting this group together, that was a massive part of what kept people in the conversation and eradicated people from the conversation. And thus, every part of our session, there is an in-possession focus. So this next clip that you're about to show, and Didi's about to strike the ball, but there are a couple of requirements. There's either an 8 pass, a 10 pass, or a 6 pass. So she's just played it low as if she was driving it through to the 6. But notice that as she plays the ball, Britt tracks that ball to where Maya's catching it, right? She's in the main goal, but she tracks it the entire way. She's engaged. She knows that she's not going to get the ball off that initial one, but that movement laterally and then back inside is what we're looking for.
God, that's awesome. I mean, I'm like, it's very hard. Look, I mean, it's very rarely am I speechless, but I'm just thinking is like, oh my God, this is just next level. Saskia, is there anything you want to add to this? Because my brain is just exploded right now.
No, I agree. Cool. It's amazing how you can, you know, we get so focused on one situation when we're training, and how you have 2 situations here. All right, who's making the save, who's tracking, the fact she's in the big goal tracking that slotted ball, everything like that. It's the engagement, the mind is constantly engaged. It's amazing. No, it's
well. Here's what happens from time to time is that initial ball. Maya might palm it off into what would be Britt's 6-yard box then, and Britt has an obligation then to dominate that space. But she can't dominate the space if she's just playing the strike or the 1v1 that she's going to get from me. So you notice that every single ball she plays, she's tracking it laterally as if it was pulled back to the end line, and she would assume a position close-ish to the post. However, Britt hasn't played a game yet, and thus we don't get to do game film on her. So my ability to coach those situations from game film is nullified, and thus I need to build those situations into practice so we can get those habits in or out, celebrate them or eradicate them, so that when the time does come, she's good to go.
Yeah, you know, one of the things that I love what you just said there in regards to, and I think a lot of times we forget about that, is that, you know, when we are working with goalkeepers who have been in different experiences throughout the season, and we start trying to train them the same. And Saskia, I've been a culprit of this in the past too, especially at the collegiate level. And I started recognizing, oh my gosh, well, how can I expect someone who hasn't been in this scenario in a game environment like this lately to be as sharp or on the same page as somebody who has been going through those reps consistently?
Yeah, but I think that what Dan's doing, and that, you know, what I believe in and everything, is making everything as game-like as you can. Game-like scenarios, game-like everything, so that regardless of whether you're a second or third goalkeeper has played, they're used to the scenarios.
Yeah.
You know, and you trust in them for that. So, I mean, I love this. There's so many different situations here. There's so many different things that can happen. Yeah, you're sending this to me, by the way.
Michael, will you go back? Will you go back?
For sure.
Yeah, there's so many different situations. It's not what we have with a lot of coaches out there and stuff is like, okay, this is what we're doing. This is where the ball's going to go. This is how you're training. Right. But that's not game like. Right. So there's so many. How are you working on your positioning? How are you working on your service back? How are you working on if this gets deflected off a mannequin? What are you doing? Like there's so many different situations, but that's the game of soccer.
Yeah.
That's what happens in front of you within the 18, period.
Yeah.
So
there are a few things that to be a goalkeeper at Angel City, you have to be able to do. And one of them is to play into, right? You must be able to play into an 8 if they fall into a pocket of space. You must be able to play over somebody into a right back or left back. And in that very clip there, you've just seen 2 other things that are really, really important. So watch when Maya strikes the ball at Britt, you could see this as service for Britt, but I don't see this as service for Britt. I see this as Maya taking a one-step goal kick and clipping the ball into an 8 who's 40 yards up the field, right? That's the way I see it. Britt just happens to be 8 yards from her. And then the next thing, and I celebrated this with Kaylin a bunch.
Oh, all right, guys. This is right here. Oh, hold on. I was trying to mute that right there. Guys, we're going to be starting in about 4 minutes or so right now. That is Daniel Ball right over there. But in a second, we're going to have Cameron Sauro from Inter Miami and the one and only Nate Kitchell from Phoenix Rising. We're starting in about 3 minutes, guys. Get your questions and comments in the comment section, guys. Shout out to all you guys watching on the Union Sports community. Shout out to everybody who's joined the Union Sports. You guys are awesome. Keep engaging out there. Let's keep carrying it forward, everybody. Got some great questions in the comment section already, guys. We will get to them. I promise you. 3 minutes. 3 minutes to go.
Because the toughest thing for me at Angel City to recreate is pressure. Because the pressure on training is very different to the pressure on game day. But if I can make one person's final action contingent upon the first person succeeding, then actually they create this pressure in their minds to deliver.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And I love the fact that you're bringing up the fact that in regards to how one action leads to another action leads to another action, because I think a lot of times, no, Saskia, go ahead if you were about to say something.
Yeah, and that's the next level. Let's be honest. That's the next level of goalkeeping. The next level of goalkeeping is that you understand that your action, where are you going to go with that? Right? It's not, I've got the ball, pause. It's, you've already scanned, you've already done this. So am I going to be 2 steps into a throw, 3 steps into a side volley, trigger somebody, hit the 9, hit the this, hit the that, hit the other. And the minute that you aren't thinking a step ahead is you're too late at this level.
I was just thinking about just in the fact is like when I'm working with young goalkeepers, Dan, is that they think about, okay, one action, but they don't think about the consequences of their action for the next person who received that ball. So if they played a poor ball to action 1, action 2 is going to be, maybe they're successful with that action, but action 2 is not going to be successful because of where they place that ball.
So here's what's interesting, right? Is that actually with our group, we've gone all the way around the circle and come back to the bottom. And it's my job with some of the complexity of the stuff that we do. There isn't always an action for the final goalkeeper. But my job is to coach, not necessarily the final action, but the positioning. Did you track? Did you move too much? Did you move not enough? It may not always end in a save, right? But actually, there's a host of different moments that led up to that moment. Were you in the spot where you could make a save if I'd have hit the target?
All right. I hope all of you guys enjoyed that preview with Daniel Ball. That was last week's episode with Daniel Ball of Angel City FC. We are about to start. Let's get this going, guys. Here we go. Welcome to Inside the 18. I'm Michael Magid, live from Hollywood, California. With me, fresh from Camp Shutout, the one and only Phoenix Rising's Nate Kitchell. Nate, what's up, man? Thanks for coming on as a guest co-host. I absolutely love this, man.
Yeah, excited for it. I got some big shoes to fill with Omar and Saskia, but excited to be here. And first time meeting Cam, so excited to get into it and chat with him a little bit here.
Well, I guess the cat's out of the bag, guys. Our guest panelists joining us today, Inter Miami Youth Academy goalkeeper coach Cameron Sauro. Cam, honestly, you've been having a lot going on lately, man. It seems like you've been flying in and out of locations.
Yeah. It's been an exciting summer. You know, my boss and our director of academy goalkeeping, Chris, has just recently had a kid, his second kid. So I've been helping him out and covering him and joining the second team on their travels. So we just got back this morning from New York, got to play up there, and you know, it was a good result, great experience. I've loved my time. It's been a hectic month, and now we're just ready to get back and start with the academy goalkeepers again. So ready to get back into it.
I love what you just said right there, because Nate, that's something that's very similar in regards to over at Phoenix Rising. There seems to be a lot of cohesion between yourself and the first team over there.
Yeah. So we have Corey Robertson as our first team goalkeeper coach, and get a chance to go in and work with him quite a bit, and work with the first team goalkeeper coaches, as well as have some of our academy goalkeepers come in and work in that environment as well. So been lucky to have a little bit of cohesion with the first team in the academy we're running down there.
Yeah, while we're talking about that in regards to cohesion, a couple weeks ago we had a young man on the show known as Stan Anderson, a very young man named Stan Anderson from Camp Shutout, and he also had another spry young gentleman with him named Todd Hofford from One-on-One Soccer over on the East Coast. And Nate, it seems like last year Todd came to Camp Shutout and he was a guest coach, and this year he obviously had one-on-one soccer going on, but it seems like there was still a lot of cohesion and a lot of kind of back and forth collaboration between him and Stan over there.
Absolutely. And I think that might have spurred a little bit out of this podcast. I'm not quite sure, but him and Todd seem to be interacting quite a bit throughout the week on social media and obviously engaging each other. And between the two of them, I think we covered 550 goalkeepers between the two camps this past week. And they were all being trained by the best of the best and really enjoyed themselves, and hopefully got a little bit better. And like I said, as Stan always says, the old rooster crows, and I don't even know what the saying is. He's gonna have to put it in
it's
the
a
chat.
Fantastic saying, whatever it is.
It's fantastic. It's a saying. Old rooster crows, young rooster, I can't remember.
Well, the funniest thing about Stan,
sure
I mean, and just using him like as an example right now, like Stan is a representation of how all of us here were able to connect. And despite the fact that none of us ever worked together before, Stan Anderson. So Sam, Cam, you're I mean, it feels like a Camp Shutout or a Stan Anderson promo here, but Cam, how did you connect with Stan?
So I've just interacted with Stan over social media a little bit. You know, obviously, Camp Shutout's kind of like the mecca of goalkeeping, right? So you see it every year, and it's really a special place for goalkeepers where they're surrounded by like-minded individuals, which even within our academy, when we're trying to be really intentional with that, you still have field players floating around, other coaches, and there's no place where goalkeepers can go and just simply be solely together with, whether it's 17-year-olds, 16-year-olds, younger, older, former pros. Obviously, Stan's got quite the pipeline in terms of players that have come through Camp Shutout that are now coaching in it. So it's really a unique experience and an incredible experience in my eyes. And it's just something that I've been able to really watch from afar, that, guys like Nate, Eric Klinowski, Cody Lorendi have all been able to go and join and obviously help create that really special environment up there in Wisconsin.
I want to talk about that. By the way, Nate, feel free to step in anytime. You are a co-host, so you can say whatever the heck you want.
I was going to say, Stan chimed in right there. It's the old rooster crows, the young rooster learns.
There you go.
Sorry, a little tired still, Stan.
Well, I was going to say before we kind of retire Stan and Camp Shutout right there. And by the way, guys, it's promo code I18 for next year for Camp Shutout 2023. Now, Totally kidding. Although it does feel a little bit like that, but I would endorse it. I would give a promo code. Absolutely. Join the big show next year, guys. If you didn't make it this year, join the big show next year. But Nate, a lot of ex-pros seem to be giving back at Camp Shutout, and that's a really cool experience for a lot of these young kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was awesome this year. We had Mobova, who's actually on her break for NWSL right now. She came up for a day to visit with camp and see all the guys up there. And then we had Kyle Line as well. We had Cody Lorendian with him, and then Eric Lanowski. I think those were the 4 pros we had up there this week who came to give their experience and give their feedback to everyone there. And I think it's invaluable for all the kids being there.
Now, I want to bring something with you, Cameron, because last week we had Daniel Ball on from Angel City, and he said that one of the trends lately in coaching out there and coaching education has been bringing in ex-pros to work with kind of more academic goalkeeper coaches, who maybe weren't ex-pro, weren't pros, but they've really studied the game. They became student of the games. Maybe they played at the collegiate level. Is that a trend that you're seeing as well, too?
Yeah. I completely agree with it. And I think I'm kind of obviously not being a former pro. I love it. I think there's a lot of, sometimes there's animosity and stuff like that. I think those experiences, they give you instant credibility with your goalkeepers, but at the same time, they give you insight and little details that from a player's perspective that sometimes as coaches we miss, right? So being able to combine that with someone, and again, we all have specific areas of goalkeeping, right? Where we feel like we're very in tune with, maybe experts with. And obviously I can't recreate those experiences, even though I may be good at something else or here or there. So being able to combine that with the experience, I think now you're talking about creating a holistic environment for your goalkeepers to, have the motivation and to go on and succeed, but also giving them the tools to understand the steps and the process. And just in tune with our topic today, the big thing for me is process, progress, and then product is one of the things that I'm going to kind of be talking about within our little topic that I know we've got planned for down the road.
Speaking of that, and I love what you just said there in regards to product, because I think, Nate, one thing that you had brought up in the past in regards to, ex-pro versus pro and everything like that. And I, for anybody out there, Nate did not play for the men's national team. Although his service is at the level of the men's national team. You've always said it's about being able to replicate the environment that the players are playing in. So if you can replicate that environment, whether your service is of the level and the demands of your training sessions or that they're experiencing, then that's all that really matters.
Absolutely. And I think it's expectations. Do you hold them accountable for their services? Do you hold them accountable for their behaviors coming into training and finding ways to engage the players and get them to buy in and believe in themselves in that environment? I think speaks volumes of who they are as kids and who they want to become as players in those environments.
I love what you just said in regards to who they are as kids, because like Cameron, obviously at Inter Miami, and shout out, you guys seem to be really developing a really solid foundation over there for the academy. I mean, my gosh, you guys, came into the academy not that long ago and already, winning championships. And I know at the youth level, championships don't matter, but at least it does show some sort of accumulation of development, at the academy. You've kind of been, involved in it, come from recently. You came from the collegiate environment. What have you kind of noticed from that onset?
Just from the jump from college into academy?
Yeah.
I've loved the, one of the things I wanted to target in making that jump was the extra time on the field and being able to really have those extra hours of whether it was planning, design, or just being able to connect with the goalkeepers, right? So being able to give them an atmosphere where they can be their own person and explore that within goalkeeping, right? What techniques, what skills, what works for them, what doesn't work for them. And then how can we enhance that, right? At the youth and at the younger age groups, there's a little bit more teaching and you're kind of adding tools to their toolbox. And then as you get to that 17, U19 pre-pro phase, now you're talking about, making sure that product piece is there. So being able to enhance those tools, those skills that they've developed over the years, and just let them be themselves within the net, within the goal, come game day, right? So how can we enhance those little details and really allow them? And, you always want to see their personality. And I think most top goalkeepers have a big personality, right? Come through on game day in those big moments, in those special occasions, whether it's a professional level, youth level, whatever it might be. That I think that pressure is always there to an extent. It's just different at each level as you continue to move up and go.
Speaking of personalities, and again, Nate, if you've got questions, put them. Just throw it out there. Just throw it out there. Say whatever you want to say. But Cameron, you brought up personalities, and Nate, like, personality-wise, there's goalkeeper coaches out there that have specific personalities too. And do you think that's something you should take into consideration? I'm just kind of brainstorming here. When you're looking at identifying goalkeepers that are going to be right for your environment, like, how are you going to work with them?
Absolutely. And I think it's important to figure out not just their personality, but how their personalities handle stress. I think that's a big piece for me. Like I said, if a goalkeeper can't handle the stress, they might be completely calm and a completely fine kid when it comes to training environments, that kind of stuff. But if they get put into a stressful situation, how do they respond? So like I said, the ability to handle stress in those situations and what their personality shows in those moments, I think, is a huge piece for me. And trying to teach them how to handle stress in those moments is a big part of my coaching personality, and trying to help them figure out how to handle those stressful moments in games, and trying to recreate those moments in training, and trying to go forward with that is kind of part of my coaching personality.
Speaking of stressful moments, that was stressful for me right there, Cameron. I don't know about you, but like, I heard that piercing ding of the text message come through, and I was like, oh boy, if this is going to be like one of those long group threads where somebody has no idea that there's a live stream going on at the same time, and it's just like ding, 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 that would have been rough. I'm
working on shutting it off right now.
That was you. Oh, I thought that was Nate. I was going to throw Nate on you, but okay.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. All good. Well, guys, before we move into the topic, really quickly, Cameron, I do want to bring this up with you, because you did mention the fact that you came in from the collegiate environment. And this is something that a lot of coaches do, is they kind of flip-flop back and forth between the youth environment and the young professional, and I'm going to throw the Division I level as a young professional environment, because that's really what it's supposed to be, is a stepping stone to the professional environment. Is that a difficult transition for a lot of coaches out there, because they start putting the demands of what they're asking of D1 players in the morning on the afternoon on the kids?
Yeah, it can be, right? I think you've got to really know and understand what your outcomes are for the session, for the day, and for the goalkeeper, right? Understand what you're working with and what your outcomes are for that day. So, the college level, obviously the outcome is, how can we prepare them to win on Wednesday and then bounce back and win on Saturday again, right? So how can we give them the tools to be successful short term? We trying to develop little things and enhance little things. Whereas for the youth goalkeeper, you're looking at it, at least in my eyes, in a much larger period of time, right? How can we take these outcomes for today? But that ties into what that 6-week plan is, right? Not just winning. They're not going to win every game. It's not only about that, but how can we tie that into their development as a goalkeeper over the next 6 weeks? And then, okay, if this is our outcome for the day, we look at it back in 6 weeks and say, okay, this is where we're at. So being able to have that clear understanding, that clarity going into each session, to me, helped me a ton. Knowing exactly what I wanted to get out of it, knowing my age considerations for whether they're U16, U13, U12, whatever it might be, and just being able to, okay, this is my expectations, these are my considerations, and then here are my outcomes. Let's put it all together and let's go out and train, right? So that helped me at least.
Absolutely.
Nate.
Super defined coaching points, right? At each age group. Like I said, know your topic, know what your 2-3 points of the day that you want to get out are, and figure out what they need in those moments for those 2 or 3 topics. I think that's huge. I love that.
I want to say this though, Nate, like, I think, and I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus, but I think a lot of the times it's just a sheer look. We all are busy people, and we all have a lot of things. And there's a lot of youth coaches out there who are balancing another full-time career, and they do this as a supplemental job. And I think just out of laziness, they just kind of keep regurgitating the same session design, regardless of what the age group is, just because they don't manage their time well enough.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
My kind of opinion on that, like I said, they're busy. They're going to have one, maybe it's not out of laziness. Like I said, maybe it's out of necessity. They might have one design, but what tweaks can they make in that one session design, or what complexity can they throw on their coaching points to help define how that session goes and what the goalkeepers are going to get out of that session? I think that's something to kind of think about when you're going through possibly a similar session between if you're working with a 13 and working with a 16 or 17, and trying to make your coaching points a little bit more complex instead of necessarily changing the whole session around for a kid who's 2 or 3 age groups older.
Yeah.
I love what you just said there. And Cameron, do you agree that you can just use the same session design, but just change the behavior in your session and what you're asking them to get out of that session?
Yeah, I think that's where I don't know if flexibility is the best word, but being flexible in how you manage and handle. Obviously, we all have certain traits in our personality, but how you communicate, how you serve, how you talk to, and your coaching points may vary from a U19 to a U13, right? So being able to go out there, and it might be one session's at 8 a.m., the next one's at 10, and then you've got one at 4 in the afternoon. And if you have the clarity and knowing, okay, for this age group, my target is this for this age group. And then if you have a good understanding of your goalkeepers, you can be a little bit more flexible. Okay, I don't have to be as high energy with these guys because they're very motivated intrinsically. They're going to come out, and it's going to be a day where I can just put them out there and compete and then give a few complex points. You go younger, and now you have to maybe add a little bit more energy. You have to be a little bit more engaging to draw it out of the players. And there you go, right? You've got the same outcomes the outcomes that you desired, but you're using a similar session structure or the same session structure as you would for a U19 or a U17.
You know, speaking of outcomes and session structure, I think this is a great segue to move into today's topic, guys. And that is going to be, it's actually a really cool topic. And it kind of came about from the session design that we'd seen with Daniel Ball last week with Angel City FC. And that is rewards. Kitchell, what do we mean by rewards within your session design?
So with rewards, for me, it can be a variety of things. Depends on the age group, the session I'm working with, the level I'm working with. So with younger kids, it might be a little bit more competition based. So if it's my U8s, U9s, U10s, I might be working with them in a game like environment where they're playing handball, and the reward is literally winning the game and teaching them to win. Whereas with my U16, 17, 19 academy boys, they might not be playing that, but the reward might come from intrinsic value to what we're doing. Or it might be as simple, when we get into the video a little skill-based competition at the beginning and trying to beat another goalkeeper during your warm-up and catching the most balls or hitting the target the most times, and putting a number value to it can also work. So depends on the kid, depends on the session for me.
I love what you just said right there, Kitchell, because like Cameron, I was just kind of thinking about this, and I was always thinking about it from a tangible standpoint, but you're right. A lot of these rewards can be untangible, whatever the word is. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as a goalkeeper, and especially as a young goalkeeper, being able to develop that mentality and that mindset of the competition aspect and the intangible little rewards that you can get, I think that's huge, right? I think from myself and a rewards perspective, speaking about process, progress, and product, what do you reward on each day, on each age group, right? So if you're working with the U12s, the U13s, the U14s, you're going to want to reward them for their process, their progress, right? So the work that they've put in, the progress that they've made. Whereas at that 17 U19 level, when, they're getting to that pre-pro phase, there's progress in there, there's process in there, but, at the end of the day, they need to have product, right? They need to be able to win to compete in a professional environment. Otherwise, you're going to get eaten alive by someone who does it every single day. So being able to reward and understand, okay, with these guys, this is going to be my target. Here's how I'm going to reward them, right? He's been working a lot on this. So every time he catches it, whether there's a session design that rewards that action, or I'm giving him verbal feedback to reward him for that action, is huge, right? Just to really help them continue to grow, continue to stay motivated, and push in terms of, their individual development and getting better every day.
I love what you just said right there, because I wasn't even thinking about this, but Kitchie, I think sometimes us, especially a lot of young coaches who overcoach, they're giving feedback so often that it just becomes white noise. But if the reward actually becomes a positive feedback, if that's the behaviors that your goalkeepers get used to, that like, oh my gosh, if he just gave me positive feedback, that's the reward, because he doesn't give it or she doesn't give it consistently.
Yeah, and like I said, my coaching style is I'm not a yeller. I wait for in a game environment. I'm not someone who a kid makes a mistake, I'm going to tell them right off the bat, this is what happened off my bench. I'm going to wait for them at halftime to come off and then give them the feedback there, positive, negative. I'm going to wait for that feedback to come from me upfront and personal. They know I'm not going to yell at them, so I don't do that in the session either. I'm not a yeller in my training environment. So if something good happens, that's when I reward them. It's usually not me over coaching and stepping in when I don't need to.
Yeah. By the way, speaking of stepping in, Cameron, you can step in as well too. Otherwise, I'll just keep talking. But I do want to bring this up, because this is something that I've been thinking about, and this is what I've been experimenting with, and I would love your guys' feedback. And especially once we start watching some of your sessions, I want to see how we can maybe incorporate this. I've been starting recognizing that a lot of mundane activities, especially at the younger foundational ages, they're not engaged, they're not interested. And then I started adding dynamic actions as a reward for those things, such as clean bowl, clean possession out of the back. Those things lead to, in the picture, a dynamic action, which, let's be honest, as a young goalkeeper, they find more exciting, they get more interested about. So an example, clean bowl out leads to a cutback that the player has to now deal with that action.
Yeah. No, it's finding different ways to engage young goalkeepers and keep them engaged. I think has been my biggest growth. I would say over the past 6 months since joining Inter Miami. Like one of the things that we do, and a lot of the times, there will be days where it's heavy in technical repetition. But on those days, if they're there early, sometimes they get rewarded by being able to design the warm up. So I'll bring out, there might be a Swiss ball, a ladder, and I'll let, hey, you guys can do your thing, but you've got 10 minutes, you guys can mess around and do some goalkeeping actions, jump here or there. Or it's, they come in, they'll watch a couple of clips of, the one thing that we're lucky to have is same as Nate, you've got video on your first team goalkeepers, right? So if we're practicing that cutback action, well, here's Drake Callender from the night before doing it excellently and making a big time save, right? And then that's where you kind of see them walk out to practice and they're talking about the save, their eyes are lit up, they're engaged, and boom. And then if you videotape your sessions, you're sending them little clips from within the session of, hey, look, here's the picture, like that's you right next to, there's Drake, there's you. And the kids love it, right? The kids are, instantly buying in because, those are their heroes, especially at the younger ages. So it's massive.
Dude, I just love what you just said right there. Man, I'm getting so many ideas right now. I can't wait till I go back out on the field here. But like, Kitchie, have you tried that? Have you ever tried like, so-and-so, was, playing last night and this action happened. I'm going to try to recreate that in the training session so the kids get the same experience. And that's kind of a reward for a good session or something.
I haven't. That's a great idea. That's something that I really haven't. Like I said, my role, I'm a little busy a lot of the times, and just something I need to make a little bit more time for myself is the film breakdown stuff. And that's something I have been meaning to go into a lot more, and just time,
Yeah. No,
takes time to do.
It takes a while, it takes a while, but it's, I've really enjoyed it. Like I got to the point, obviously we're in off season now with our 17s. One of the things that I really wanted to kind of help them grow in was just the cognitive aspects, right? What actions are we seeing when we're watching? So, we'd go out there, and if we did cutbacks, if we did crossing, they'd get, 2 to 3 clips. And just in the walkout, right? They'd have them on their phone in the morning. They'd look at them. We'd walk out. Hey, what'd you guys see? What were some of the skills that you saw? And they're, at least from the time that I started to the end, the conversations, the depth of it, the understanding, was so much better. And then now we're really talking about, that love for the position, that understanding of the position, where they're truly engaged. And as they're watching, they feel that ownership, because, we've been talking about this, we've been talking about that. When they're, whether they're watching it on TV with their friends or whatever else. So I'm very lucky in the situation that I have, I've got access to a lot of cool tools that I can use that to send to the goalkeepers. But that's been a big aspect of me finding different ways to stimulate and engage those youth goalkeepers. Right.
Well, I love this. Right, one of the really cool things right here is just kind of like the contrast of the two types of session designs that you both have sent right here. Like Nate, you sent a little bit more warm up activities right here, and Cameron, you've sent some stuff actually within the design, when you're in the kind of the meat of the session right here. So I want to kind of throw Nate up here first.
Yeah.
And so we're gonna just start from the kind of the very beginning of the clips right here. So Nate, why don't you break down first off the level that we're talking about here, where we are in the design, and what you're expecting to get out of this portion of the design.
Yeah, so this is just a warm-up activity for my 15s through 19s, I believe, is in here. That might just be my 17s and 19s. I think the next piece is the 16s and 15s. But these boys, like I said, just a very simple warm-up activity, just into the hands, out of the hands, little volley into the gap, little movement, and then trying to find a throw in possession to one of the small goals. And talking about rewards in those moments, one thing I think that, like I said, this is not a design that I included a reward into, but something you could do as a reward to integrate competition into it is simply, like I said, clean catch versus hitting the net. So the two goalkeepers who are working are competing against each other. The goalkeeper who's moving between the gates you get a point for catching the ball clean. The keeper with the throw gets a point for putting it in the back of the net. Right? Just something as simple as that can start and stimulate the session and get everyone engaged just to start right off the bat.
I was just thinking right here, Cameron, and I don't know how you feel about this, but I just think that one of the things that happens a lot of times in warm-ups, especially at the foundational ages, is we just kind of let kids slide in warm-ups. And maybe that's because we're setting up cones, or we're dealing with the team manager or the club director or whatever it is, while they're doing this. But it's so important to make sure that they are clean during their warm up, and that they are engaged, and that maybe doing something that's like, if that's not a clean bowl into the net right there, well, you just lost your rep. So the reward is you don't get your service unless you get that clean distribution in.
Yeah, I love it. And especially the aspect of, like, again, the high contour basic handle, but it's tagged into that game like action of, after you hold that, how can you start the counterattack, right? So that ball is going directly into the goalkeeper in black, who then also has to perform a game like action, right? So now your reward and the action, like, you have to handle it cleanly, otherwise you can't get it out of your hands quick enough. So it's almost built into, I know we heard Dan Ball talk about it, right? The pressure's built into that goalkeeper, because there's a second action. He now has to make sure the first action is right. Otherwise, it's going to suck for that goalkeeper in black, because he's never going to get the ball. So if you can't hold the ball cleanly, you can't even move into and progress into that. So now there's a little bit of pressure naturally, because no one wants to be the guy who ruins the drill, right?
Exactly. And if the guy in black, like I said, it becomes a stressful situation if all of a sudden he doesn't catch that ball cleanly, and he's thrown into a situation where he has both the next ball and the ball he has in his hands to deal with. And it's figuring out how to deal with that moment and trying to find a pace to it to do it at the right speed.
So let's move on here. So now where are we now in the session, Nate?
This was the net. So this is just the opposite. So I think that was the 17s, 19s. I believe this is the 15s, 16s, just going through the second piece of it. So like I said before, it was volley into a throw. Now it's a scoop into a two-touch pass. So in, out, trying to find that pass. Again, second movements, second actions from each of the goalkeepers here.
What I love about that right there, first off, guys, for anybody out there who works with this age group, do you notice how clean that prep touch is?
Mhm.
I really want to stress that to anybody who's watching this right now. And if you're listening to this, essentially we're talking about 14, 15-year-old kids right here, and their prep touch has a purpose. I see so many times, and again, I'm not trying to throw any coaches out there under the bus. I see so many times people letting this slide. And well, guess what's going to happen in a game? It's going to be a bad prep touch, and it's going to put, your 6 in a bad situation when they play that ball to them.
Yep. And so I can remember this drill pretty clearly because off that blue cone up at the top, up on the right there, a lot of them were not creating any negative movement off that initial ball in, and it was really creating a problem with that one. So that little negative movement off the blue cone, waiting for it to go, and then opening up the body shape for that first touch was a big point for me with this age group.
And I think one of the things is like, we're talking about rewards here, but should there be, and Cameron, I don't know how you feel about this. I mean, there's a lot of different sports psych people there who have differences of opinions, but should there be punishment as well too? Well, okay, if this action is not performed at the level or what is expected of the demands, that the punishment might be getting scored on, or something like that.
Yeah. No, I think, and to me, the biggest thing, I try to relate that back to the individual goalkeeper, right? Just within our academy, we've got goalkeepers who have joined us recently, goalkeepers who have been with us forever. So some of them aren't quite used to the pressure and the standards that come with, our academy and obviously wanting to win, but develop pros. So if you have a goalkeeper who isn't quite as in tuned and hasn't been in that environment where there is a standard of, can you catch every ball? Can you hold every ball or deal with it appropriately? Then, okay, yeah, well, listen, if you're going to drop this, here's your second action. Here's your negative action. There's a goal that can be scored, right? To make sure that they understand from moment 1 to the end of session, that standard is there. It doesn't just turn on when obviously here there's no big goal. And then you'll see those goalkeepers, they go into it and there's a competition aspect with the big goal and they don't want to get scored on and their behaviors change a little bit. Well, how can we create that environment where minute 1 to minute, 60, that the standards are the same? It's just within different drills, different designs, warm up to end of session, right? Your real game-like scenarios.
So speaking of game-like scenarios, let's move here and you can kind of talk a little bit about this right here. And Kitchell, we'll get back to some of your stuff too.
No,
but I love kind of the juxtaposition of going with the 2 different ones right there. I think that's a word. I think I went to school enough to know what that is. Cameron, what are we talking about right here? First off, I see 2 goals, so those are very heavy. So congratulations that you have goalkeepers that can move those for you.
Yeah. No, so this was one of our last sessions before we went off to the national playoffs or whatever, and just a little bit of shot stopping work. But for me, talking about rewards, so Brett, our goalkeeper with the white gloves there, you can see he makes a hold on the first one, makes a hold on the second one, and his reward for that hold, that simple catch, is being able to reinsert to me, who I then get to shoot and score on the other goalkeeper. And I think I end up hitting the post after a little bit here on the other goalkeeper. Whereas you'll see in the next clip, he actually doesn't make that simple catch. And what happens is it results in what almost is a goal, but turns out to be a very nice kick save with his feet. And just for me, like, I think I've run this drill with our younger kids, our older kids, and when it goes into a flexibility of design with these guys, the older guys, all right, you've got 4 reps, who wins? And then the loser's out, you're done, right? You move on, you go into, the guy serving, it's a little bit of his IDP because he's driving. So you might go into being the layoff guy, right? Yep. But with the younger kids, rather than the focus being on that product and the actual winning, it's okay, where have we made progress? Where's like the process, right? This is what we did in our activation phase into our, second phase where we did maybe a little bit of technical isolation. And then, okay, here's our progress. You couldn't do this 2-3 weeks ago, but you're able to do it now. And yeah, maybe you got scored on. A lot of the times I'll give them more reps and it won't necessarily be winners and losers always, because I don't want them to solely focus on that. I want them to make sure that they're engaged with the process, the progress, the little things that are going on through there.
Yeah. Nate, anything you want to add to?
No, I like that. I like that a lot. I do like the idea of the limited reps, teaching them to win. One piece that's in mine is reps end after a goal. So there might be 3 or 4 goalkeepers. So I try and engage every goalkeeper in the drill and have 3 to 4 working in certain phase of it. But if that very first ball goes in, it ends the rep, and then you start again until. But the other 3 don't get engaged, which drives them a little bit, helps them drive the other goalkeeper who got scored on the first time, helps them get a little pissed off at those guys, and helps them move through the session a little bit more, hopefully.
I love what you just said right there, Kitchell, because I was just thinking the same thing. It adds this added responsibility on the goalkeeper's end. Like, in order for the entire group to get a session, their actions need to be on point. Otherwise, it's going to result, because it's the same thing. And I love what happened here, Cameron, in regards to poor, I don't want to say poor blocking shape, but let's just say not a clean hold. Led to a shot on goal for the other player. Because sometimes I think a lot of young goalkeepers don't understand sometimes, like, just because you're not negatively affected by an action doesn't mean your team's not negatively affected by an action.
Exactly. And I think a lot of the times, and that's, when we talk about that warm-up phase, that activation phase, a lot of the times, if you don't have a negative consequence for that poor action, you get into where it's real, where your team is affected, and oh shoot, now I've got to change what I'm doing. Now I've got to really adjust and improve myself, right? So I think having that emphasis built in is huge, especially at the older age groups, where, again, it's about production, right? How can you produce on the field for your team? How can you make saves to win the game and come out on top, right? I think as you get older, that's what the priorities really are.
Okay, so I got a question for you guys right here, and Kitchell, maybe you can hop in, since you're not as biased on this, since this isn't your session. This dude right here, dude in the middle right here, how do we reward this guy? How do we keep this guy engaged? Because I'm talking about, like, if you got 13-year-old who's just had a giant math test and it's hot and humid out there, and you're telling him, hey, this is what you're doing right now. Yeah, how do we keep them motivated? How do we let them recognize them? By the way, this reminds me of, like, last week in the CONCACAF Championship, Kalen Sheridan played a nice ball just like this down the middle that led to a counter by Canada that was just absolutely fantastic, and that was all built from the back from that ball that she played in literally a very similar position.
Exactly. So how do you relate it to the game, right? You're going to be hitting balls off the deck. You're going to be able to hit clip balls. Maybe you vary that ball up into that striker there. Like I said, figure out how you're going to strike it as a grass clipper. How are you going to strike it driven? How are you going to curl that ball into that same player who's 12, 15 yards from you, and vary up the service? But if you're talking about a 13-year-old, I don't know about your 13-year-olds, Cam, but my 13-year-olds love to show up to the session and just strike balls. So my 13-year-olds have no problem just standing there, like, trying to figure out service and strike balls to one another, because that's something that for some reason they really, really enjoy.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on, right? Because that was actually, like, so part of his outcomes, or his IDP, is ball striking, right? His ability to be able to drive those balls. And obviously I should have probably stopped the rep and said, hey, go back and do it again, right? But being able to vary that clipped ball and play into is something that he's growing on and working on. And that was one of the big reasons why, okay, if he wasn't in net, he was sliding into that corner and working on those driven balls, because it was something that he was like, that he knows. And we've discussed that, okay, this is an area of your game that can you improve, right? Can you grow in it to be better and to, obviously exploit space and not just be effective in one area of the game in terms of out of possession? Can we be effective in possession as well as out of possession? And that was his, one of his goals. He knows that, okay, I'm going there and I'm going to do some with my right. I'm going to do some with my left. I'm going to clip some into his chest. I'm going to clip some into his, or drive some into his feet, and just get, different reps, but ball striking over and over.
I want to talk about this, and Cameron, I don't mean to pick on your session. We'll get back to Nate's stuff, I promise you, but I think we're growing from this, and I think we're all learning from this. So Kitchell, let's just say these are what, 13, 14? Cameron? How old are these guys?
16s.
16s. Okay. So let's say you're working with 19s or young or old, collegiate level, right, Kitchie?
Yep.
So are the expectations for this dude so much higher for you because of what their IQ should be at that level? Like, are you accepting the hands on the hips right here, or do you expect them to be engaged as if they could be ready for the possession returning to them?
So, I mean, the hands on the hips thing is a whole different issue, in my opinion. I shared this with Michael on Sunday. Ederson was playing at Lambeau Field, and I got a chance to go watch him play against Bayern Munich. When the ball's down at the other end and his team's in possession, he's at the top of the center circle, hands on his knees, bent over, trying to watch the game and see what happens. But as soon as their team wins possession back, he's back up and he's engaged. But the hands on the hips, hands on the knees, I have no problem with that as long as they're not the player involved in the play, right?
Cameron, thoughts?
Yeah. I think I would definitely say the older that they get, the standards might be a little bit higher.
Yeah.
But I think that the key piece that Nate hit on is the engagement, right? Like when you've got 2 goalkeepers, 3 who are really, doing specific actions. And if he might not be one of those goalkeepers at this moment in time, but if I'm asking questions, I've got 1 goalkeeper I'm coaching and I've got 3 coaches on the field, right? With me, the other goalkeepers. So
Yep.
Can he be engaged in that environment? Can he help in terms of providing feedback? So if I'm saying, hey, Brett, you dropped this ball, or Marcus, you weren't able to make the save. Josh, what do you think his issue? How would you coach him? What would you say to Marcus? And then be able to have, a minute discussion, 30 seconds maybe, and just give them ideas, right? How
Absolutely.
What you have. So I think that engagement piece is the biggest one for me.
Exactly. And when I'm talking about, like I said, hands on the hips, hands on the knees, like I said, when I'm watching Ederson do it in a game, he might be bent over at the waist, but he's watching the game. It's not like he's like head down staring at the ground while he's doing it. He's stood up, but his hands are on his knees, just watching the game while his team's in possession. And as soon as something comes into his back line or they lose possession of the ball, back off it, back engaged. But he's watching engaged the entire time, even though his body language might say otherwise.
But I think that's you needing to know your goalkeeper too.
Exactly. Yep.
Because you might see that with one goalkeeper and know that's just who they are. And another goalkeeper, something's wrong because that's not how they usually are. So you have to be able to read their behavior based on trends. I want to say this before we move back to Kitchie right here. Maybe, Cameron, the reward can be if this player decides to gives a certain type of ball, then they actually do get to be involved in the play in some way. So that could be another wrinkle. And so that's a reward for that type of service, as opposed to there being no consequences one way or the other. And again, we're all just spitballing here and we're all just thinking of different ideas. Nothing's right or wrong, So
I said, just thinking through that, another way to keep them engaged. Like I said, Cam, you're calling just a number. 1 means he's engaged, 2 means he's staying, and just you and the player up top are engaged. So on 1, when he's not expecting it, all of a sudden he has to get into the play, be a 9 that lays off balls in that moment. And if you call 2 off that first ball, now he's just hanging back and waiting for it, seeing what happens, right?
Yeah, and I think here, if he plays a quality ball into me, I'm happy if he steps through and is either traffic for these goalkeepers or is there for the rebound, right? Like now if he gets the reward of playing that quality ball out, now he can step through and he provides, like Michael said, another wrinkle to the drill of now you've got traffic. How does that alter your position? How does that change, where you are within the goal? And then knowing that, what do you have to do if you can't hold that ball, right? Where do you need to put the ball to make sure that there's no danger or second action for yourself, right? Because, I mean, again, if they make a save, they can score on each other if the ball pops out to them. So I think that's a great way that, next time if this does happen, there's your reward for playing that quality ball, into me, into the other goalkeeper, whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go here and rip Kitchie apart for a little bit.
Go ahead.
By the way,
always open for it. Always in for it.
I'm being facetious, but this is something that I really highly stress to young coaches out there, and even older coaches out there too, is that the more you can collaborate, the more you can communicate, get open, honest feedback from your peers, the better off you're going to be. Because again, I said there's nothing that's right or wrong. It's just about different ways. And sometimes when people are outside of the session, they're able to see it in a different manner than you were, because you were invested in it and you were there in the moment.
100%. 100%.
So Kitchell, what do we got here?
So like I said, I like to try and keep as many players involved in the play as possible. So that very first service is coming from the top here, and then it's going into an in possession pattern. I can't remember what my cue was to activate here, but there's a cue in there at some point. It goes to one of the two outside gates, and then there's a cue that tells them to shoot on the opposite gate. I can't remember what the cue was exactly. As soon as that's done, it's played back in for a second in possession piece. It's laid into that player who can go either side, and then it goes into protecting the goal or protecting the space on the opposite side. So
I just want to walk it through again. I just want to make sure everybody gets the picture right here. So where did it start? Did it start
back a little bit
right here?
So the middle player is actually, or the top player is going to start with the ball. So
okay.
21 and 22 on the back is going to start with the ball.
Okay. Okay.
There we go.
So we're talking about right here. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, even a little farther back.
A little farther back. Okay, got it.
Yeah, because it does just start with an initial ball, the initial shot. So there's
right here. Okay.
So this initial shot comes off again. That ball goes out. Boom, and we're playing. He was clean on that one, so the ball starts to play.
Love it.
Like I said, I can't remember what the trigger was to go across exactly.
Was it auditory?
Yeah, it was an auditory cue. So, but as soon as it comes through, it's a shot on the opposite goal there. And then
I will say this one thing that I just noticed right there, and Cameron, I don't know if you saw this. Did you see the body language of the players change after the cue?
Yeah.
After the trigger,
they become
it's very obvious to me.
Yeah. You can watch them, and they're all of a sudden it's like a light switch, right? Boom.
Yep. Again, it's relaxed in possession, and then once you're out of possession, you're engaged, you're into it, and we need to be ready for every shot that comes in.
Yeah, and I saw it right there, just because those players essentially went from being in possession to the players that are not the goalkeeper in the gate right there. All of a sudden, looked like players who were defenders who just had a shot on goal. In regards to their body language tightened up, panic situation. How are we going to deal with this?
If they're ready for rebounds, my boys love rebounds.
Cameron, what kind of wrinkles can we throw in here?
I mean, I think, maybe you start with that trigger, and then obviously as you progress, right? So there it's variable, but it's not quite random, because they know when that shot is going to come, right? Mm-hmm. And if you truly want to end up making it random, you have to make it more live, right? So whether it's, a 4v1 rondo here on the outside, but at any point, if that ball goes in, goes out, or the defender wins it, you can be scored on, right? So now we're talking about a clear, panic situations, the stress is a little bit higher. They're always ready and always prepared, even though the ball might be at their feet, that, okay, if it is won, if it is turned over, we're always engaged and ready to defend the goal, right? And taking up those appropriate decisions in relation to where the ball is, because we have that threat of, okay, if the ball gets turned over and he's there, I need to make sure I'm here in my position. And then when that ball moves, we adjust again, right? I think that's what I'd progress it into, rather than maybe add a wrinkle here.
And the next drill you'll see, I didn't really particularly like, and I actually like that idea of making it, like I said, a little bit more live. I don't think the next progression was as live as I wanted it to be either. So
you want to move on to that
right there.
You want to move on to that?
Okay. Yeah, we can move on.
Okay. You've already set it up for us to be really excited about it.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't particularly like it. It was just something that was on there. So yeah, the out of possession goal was protect the goal, and then the in possession goal goes into a possession piece. I can't remember what this piece was. Yeah, so this was from a few months ago. This is something that I just pulled together for you here, Mike. But
no, it's all
like I said,
I
didn't particularly like that it wasn't a more live progression. Like I said, looking back at it, like I said, I haven't looked at these clips in a while. So looking back at it isn't something that I would particularly like to do. If I had a chance to do it again, it becomes a little more live for everyone in these situations.
But I love that. I love that, like that maturation and kind of that growth of us by watching this film and realizing, because I think a lot of young coaches out there, they get frustrated and they think, oh, I'm not very good at this. And not realizing that you're going to fail. You're going to fail. It's going to happen. Not every session is going to be great. Not every session design is. I can't tell you how many times I've put something together. I've spent all night putting something together, and I'm like, this is going to be awesome, just awesome. And they have no idea what's going on. Like they're so lost. And I'm like, but it's so simple. They're like, but I couldn't find a way to make it relatable to them. And I'm like, I just have to scrap this. Otherwise this session's done. And we have to be willing to accept those L's.
Yeah. I think that's huge, right? Is being able to look at it objectively and be like, if something didn't work, why didn't it work? Was it me? Was it an issue of the preparation for the goalkeepers? Was the age considerations not right? Too complex, not complex enough? Being able to take those moments in that environment and look at it objectively and say, okay, because obviously at the end of the day, you set it up to get whatever out of the goalkeepers. So how can I change that, make it better, maybe scrap it all together for next time to get the desired effect out of said session, right?
Exactly.
I think that's massive.
Kitchell, what if you flip-flop these? Because like I'm looking at this right here and I'm like, the next step is more, the prior step is more dynamic and more engaged than this is.
Yeah. Like I said, I can't remember what exactly my thought process was in the progression here, but like I said, this is from a few months back. But like I said, in the middle of the season, getting a little bit tired in there. So, but it's what it is. But I need to, like I said, make it a little bit more live in some way or another. But going back to rewards, I think that just based out of all these sessions, it's all based around the kid, right? So what is the kid's reward? What is the individual's reward out of the session? And trying to make points that relate to each of the kids and trying to reward them for what we're looking for them to get out of the session. And if they're not getting what we want them to get out of the session, is there really a reason for reward if we're not giving them the right reward as well?
That's a great point. I think sometimes, we'll watch these types of podcasts as coaches and we'll go, oh, great. And we take things too literally, like, great, need to give a reward every time on the field. Yeah. And so now we're scrambling, trying to think of ideas as opposed to letting things happen organically.
Yeah. So like I'm watching that last clip. I'm like, what did I want them to get out of that? I really can't remember. And watching it back, I was like, I don't know if they really got a lot out of that session. So they're, like I said, at the 17s, 19s, that middle piece, I think they got more out of it than maybe that 15, 16s group did in that last piece. And I'm looking back, watching that, being like, I didn't really like that. I need to figure out a way that could be more rewarding for the kids in that drill to get something out of it.
Yeah.
So I got a question here, Cam. So this is the second step of the same, right? The second rep of the same activity. Okay. What was the difference here versus the first one?
Okay. Play it through.
Okay.
So here, what you see, or is this the same one?
Oh, that might be the same one.
That's the same one.
Yeah,
Okay.
Let's go. Yeah.
This is the different one. Okay.
Yeah. So here, the biggest thing, and again, this is why I think video is such a powerful tool, right? Obviously, that's a ball that's, for a goalkeeper of Brett's level, a pretty simple hold. Now he's able to come out of it with a pretty big save, right? But in having to do that and discussing with him afterwards over sending him these clips, the next reps, the ones where he was able to, two pretty simple holds, add that little bit of extra focus and, for him, making sure that he uses his fingertips and thumbs to cushion the ball in rather than his palms. He adjusted, improved, and was able to, okay, I need to do that because I know that save is low percentage, right? That save off a rebound is not going to happen to me every single time. I was able to come up big in the moment, but I wanted to win the drill. So I've got to make sure that I take care of the first rep rather than losing focus or struggling technically. So that outcome, the product, focus is what forced him to, within a session, and he was intentional about it because he was able to, watching this, say, yeah, coach, like I watched this on film when you sent it to me, and I already was able to go and fix it within the session. So I didn't even really have to communicate with him afterwards, right? Because he knew that that ability wasn't good enough, and I had to make that correction into the next phase, which, you know, obviously my distribution's quite clearly not as good as Kitchell because I wasn't able to punish the other goalkeeper after he held the ball. So, you know, that's the sad part. But for me, like watching the rewards and putting that emphasis on this group on product was what helped Brett, you know, understand, okay, you know, if I lose these reps, I'm out. I'm going to be either, you know, a target, a striker, whatever, but I want to be in the net. So I need to take care of my business. Subtle details, little stuff, but, you know, that's an improvement that if he does that every single day, you know, come 3 weeks, 4 weeks from now we can progress in whatever his IDPs or little focuses are within shot stopping, right? So that was the difference for me in terms of being able to talk about the rewards there and why, you know, again, not necessarily it's a simple mistake, but something that he was able to intentionally see and correct because of his desire to compete and win at that level.
Yeah. I will say this, though, you know, just play devil's advocate right here. Obviously, it wasn't a clean hold, but I did like, you know, and Siskio always talks about, you know, don't follow one mistake with the second mistake. I do like the fact that his reward for recovering and covering the gap was that he didn't get scored on, despite the fact that he did make consequences for actions. There's repercussions for it, but you also have to do the best in the moment to, remedy the situation.
Yeah, you're gonna drop a ball in a game, right? No matter how good you are, every goalkeeper is gonna do it. So, you know, that little element of being live and these two being able to shoot on each other, and then obviously, right, if you know the next time I use this drill, we're talking about that third server now engaging and being on that rebound as well. Boom, right? Okay, yeah, you make a mistake in a game, but if you followed it up,
how do you respond?
A response like this, you know, we'll be in a pretty good place. So yeah, no, it's a great point, Michael.
Yeah, because I was almost even thinking like another step here, another wrinkle we could almost add here is maybe the reward for playing that ball into a good area on that split here is that this guy actually is a little bit deeper. So after he releases that ball, he drops, it creates a little bit of depth. And then when that ball's played into a good area, that guy can swing the ball back in for a crossing situation. I don't know, just thinking outside the box here. So.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think, you know, when you get to this part, and, you know, this was towards the end of the session and a little bit of, you know, it was supposed to be engaging and fun and competitive just because we're getting to the end of the season. But I think adding anything that you can to make it live and random and game-like always helps, right? Yeah. It's, you know, whatever it happens, as long as it's in a certain area, certain aspect, if it's random and live, that ball gets pushed wide and you serve a cross back in, or he's deeper to cut one back. That's an excellent opportunity for something that might happen in a game, right? Yeah. So I'm all about that when you get into the final stages of your session, just to make it even more game-like, right? As much as you possibly can.
Yeah, I'm just throwing this up here from David Winter right here over at Columbus Crew. And he says, love the competitive piece. And sometimes a save is a save. Sometimes it's not about style points. So a very good point there, David. So just wanted to give you a little shout out right over there with his smiling face there. There's a question here that I'd like to throw to both you guys right here. Let me see if I can find it here. I apologize. Forgot who sent this in. Because right now it says Facebook user. And I think this is good because we've been showing these sessions. What is the ideal time a youth goalkeeper session should take? And what is the ideal number per session? And I think they're referring to reps. I mean, personally, I think it's you know, it's all different depending on the level and what the demands are for the week. But
yeah, I mean, the way I take that is in terms of like session length and how many goalkeepers within a session, or if it's reps, you know, I think especially at the youth ages, you do need, you know, reps, right? As long as they pertain to what that final action might look like. So again, for that shot stopping day, you didn't necessarily see it there, but our isolated technical phase was focused on the low dive, right? So being able to get 6-10 announced reps of, a low dive in a certain situation, and then having them go into a random situation where, okay, if the situation presents itself, can you apply it? Now, as far as session time and goalkeepers, that's a question I don't know. You could debate forever. I think a big piece is whether or not, right? Because everyone's setup is different. Are your goalkeepers going from your session right into their team session? Are you completely separate? So you've got them for an hour and a half and they don't do team training. And then that affects the number of goalkeepers that you have, right? So I think that's something, because, if you are going into a session with your team, now your goalkeeper coach is following you and coaching you within your team setting. And hey, it gives you an opportunity as a coach to hammer in more coaching points from the session that you just did, right? So being able to take that, but I think there's a lot of different factors, at least from how I'm interpreting that question. I don't know about you, Nate.
Yeah, like it depends on obviously the session. So like within one of our branch groups, like so our youngest branch group we have 3 goalkeeper coaches, but we have 20 goalkeepers. So we might have groups of 6 to 8 in those groups. But whereas with the academy boys, I'm usually looking at 2 age groups of 2, so 4, and their session involves them being acclimated into the team training session. So like you said, it varies from each group to each level to everything in between, right?
And I think it also varies depending what type of environment we're talking about too. Like if you're doing a clinic or you're doing a college session, in preseason where you're doing double days, that sort of a thing, like that's going to really affect how much time. Plus, as we all know, as goalkeeper coaches, the goalkeepers can be called at any time. I mean, you could be in the middle of one activity and, hey, we're doing, near post slotting. We need it. We need somebody. Send a guy over.
And then you got to figure out how to change your reps based on that one guy missing. How do you rotate those goalkeepers into those situations? Let them go for 3 and the next one in. Yeah, it's all like I said, it's all about that stuff too, and appeasing the field player coaches, of course.
and then in the youth environment, you have so and so's a guest player. They're here today, so they're coming to goalkeeper training because we want to evaluate them. You've literally never met this kid before, and now they're being thrown into your session design, and you have no idea what to expect. So there's all sorts of wrinkles that determine how long your session's going to be. I will use this rule of thumb personally, and I don't know how you guys feel about this. When you are doing any sort of small group training or private training, think about what's your outcome? What are your goals that you want to get out of this session? And don't go past that. So if they meet the demands, if they meet the session goals, don't keep going just because there's another 10 minutes left in the session. Because a lot of the times now you're overtraining the goalkeeper.
Yep.
Same thing. If you haven't met the demands and, you're going to have to go a little over to do it, then you got to be willing to put that time in too, because it's about the player.
Yep. Yeah. I think that's a great point, because one of the, just for my growth and where I want to get better at, right, the physical loading piece. And I think at least, from my experience, most goalkeeper coaches always want to do more, right? And just being able to, again, be objective and say, oh, we hit our goals. This can be a day of the week where I don't have to, target an RPE of 6, 7, 8. I can back off them now, and they can be a little bit fresher for the weekend because we've got what we want out of this session, right? And now maybe it's a little bit of time for them to engage with their teammates, go in early, again, maybe they're jumping into a rondo with their team. Maybe they're just resting. And I think that was always my first instinct, was to do more. And then being able to realize, no, we're at a good place. Guys, take a rest, take an extra little bit of water. Let's break it down. And then we'll have more time before we go into, the team session. Or do we utilize that for, hey, you guys can head over. I'm going to take, Nate here, and we're going to do a little bit of distribution because he needs to improve his left foot. Again, you've got that time and you can target it and use it in a lot of different ways. It doesn't just have to be what you've written on paper for that day. You can adjust and, change it as you know and as you have to.
And I think that's really important for, sorry, Mike, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Nate.
I think that's really important for those maturation ages. So 13, 14, 15, 16, like I said, managing their body. One of my boys has had some back issues, and it's just because he's growing at an exponential rate. So it's, how do I manage that? Is there stuff that he can do versus things that he can't do right now in this session? And when he's hit a spot where it's like, all right, he's good, can I just back off, let him go hit a few balls and just wait for that to happen, right? And just like I said, sooner or later, he'll be out of that growth phase, and he'll be able to do all these actions the right way still, but at a faster pace because his body has finally caught up.
Yeah. And the thing I wanted to bring up right here, Nate, real quickly, is that, so Dan Abrahams brought this up to me a few years back when I first met him. And he brought up the simple fact is that the psychosocial, and how important that is. And that sometimes so much as goalkeeper coaches, or as any coaches really, we look at the technical and the tactical goal as being the outcome of the session. But a lot of times the psychosocial is what the goal of the session was. So if you've put your goalkeeper in a good place to be able to perform in the match tomorrow, then your goal has been achieved, and you might as well end it, because you don't want to ruin that.
Yeah. I think that's massive. Right. And it's funny because obviously Eric Klonowski is a big psych guy and currently in his master's. Right. So just speaking with him, about warm-ups a couple of weeks back. And, for him, it's about training a mindset. If your goalkeeper needs 8 reps and he's physically ready to go into that game, that's what he needs to go out and perform, right? It's not always, I think, and again, early in my days, it was, okay, what warm-up did I do as a goalkeeper? And I'll put them through that. And I wanted 1,000 reps. And then now you've got, whether it's a younger goalkeeper, older goalkeeper, who's like, nah, man, my mind's in the right zone. Like you hear Ben Foster on his podcast, I'd watch a YouTube video of my highlights, or I'd watch, a big save or 2 big saves, and I was ready. That's it. That's all I needed. You're training the psychosocial aspect of, is he in that performance zone, that state of flow to go and perform, right? So the day before, I think, leads into that, that match day -1 leads into match day, and getting them in the state of flow and the proper headspace to go and perform the next day. I think that's massive.
Yep. Because on game day, it's always, if you feel ready, you are ready. So if you're feeling right and you're in that right mind state, your performance is going to be better than if you might physically need a little bit more. But if you're in the right headspace, I'd rather you be in that than push you to a space where you might not feel in that way before you hop in goal.
I mean, I think a lot of us out there, and myself included, I have to remember that the whole reason that I'm there is to put them in the best position to be successful within the match. Mm-hmm. That's it. Mm-hmm. That's all my job is. And if I start thinking it's either more about me or more about this or more about that, and at the end of the day, no one's going to remember that session design you put together, because it's not about you. It's about, how did they improve? Obviously at your guys' level, did they progress through the levels and get to the first team or whatever? But I think that's something that at least I need to keep reminding myself too. Guys, I appreciate you taking all this time. I know we've been going over an hour right now, and you guys have busy days going on. Kitchell, are you still in the Midwest or
yeah, still in Wisconsin. That's part of the reason I have this background. I'm in my teenage brother's childhood bedroom. So
gotcha.
Didn't want to embarrass him with his room. So
I just thought you wanted the phantom Nate Kitchell glowing emanating light to be coming on, and Cameron, I take it that you just got off the plane, so you're not traveling anytime soon.
No. Luckily, I've got a few days to rest and recover. So I'm just excited. I think every coach loves it, right? That week before preseason, when it's all kicking off and you've got 1,000 ideas, you know, in your head because you've been watching clips like what Dan Ball was doing and how can I take that and adjust that or apply that to my goalkeepers. So to me, it's one of the most exciting times of the year, right? How can you know, apply and grow and just give your goalkeepers the best environment possible to help them develop and maximize their potential, right? Which is what we all want for our goalkeepers to achieve.
Yeah. You know, and speaking of what we all want for our goalkeepers to achieve, what we all want is to keep growing and keep giving to the community, guys. So Cameron and Nate, if people want to reach out to you, where's the best place to connect with you guys?
Any of my social media, that kind of varies from channel to channel. Just search Nate Kitchell and I'm in there.
Yeah, same thing. I think it's Coach Sauro, Coach C Sauro, something like that over social media. But just love talking.
As you can tell, just like these inside the 18 guys, we're very engaged with social media.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, speaking of social media, guys, if you want to find a specific community just for you, and we want you guys to keep sharing. So Kitchie and Cameron, if you guys can share on there and get in the discussions and get in the conversations, we would absolutely love it, guys. Check out the free Union Soccer community on all platforms. We started with goalkeeping. We are expanding into all field player positions. So please get the word out to your friends who are other positions to start engaging, start connecting, because we got groups for midfielders, forwards, defenders, sports psychology, you know, nutrition and lifestyle, all that stuff. And we want to have those conversations going. Otherwise, it's going to be just goalkeeper coaches talking about, holding sixes. And, you know, that'll be weird. I don't know if we want that. So, and then guys, obviously, if you want to reach out to us, it's contact@insidethe18media.com or at Goalkeeper Podcast on all socials. If you have a guest suggestion or topic suggestion, you can do that on the Union too, guys. If you're on the Union, DM us at Goalkeeper Podcast. Shout out to all the guys, all the people out there who said we have to have Kitchie on, we have to have Cameron on, because we finally made it happen. Cameron was hilarious because he's like, I mean, I'll come on, but I don't know what I'm going to add. I'm like, well, people like have been asking for you, so
dude, I
did something.
Mike, I had no idea what I was on here either, so thanks for having me. I hope I was a good co-host. Whatever.
Yeah, no, like, we all listen to every podcast over COVID, right? We've got the biggest names in goalkeeping, and I'm like, what am I doing with these guys? Like,
yeah, same here, man.
Oh, please.
I just kick balls at the kids. That's all I do.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I mean, let's be honest, guys. I mean, you know, I think we all have to recognize that, and I think a lot of people out there have to recognize that there's value in everybody's conversations and talking to all the different people out there. And you know, Phil Wedden said this to me, you know, years ago. He says, you know, I can learn from the rec coach down the street. You know, like I'm always learning. So, you know, don't ever think that you're either below or above anyone you're talking to, because we all have had different experiences. We all can learn from each other. So I think that's a good way for us to leave this session, guys. All right, guys, we've had a lot of fun today, guys. That's all the time on Inside the 18, and we are out. Later, guys.